TechBridge team is looking at is trying to ensure that we can do this from a remote sense. You know, how do we do it in an age of social distancing? So I'm here in my basement in Arlington, Virginia. So I'm about 20 minutes away from the Pentagon. And it's a lot harder, I'll be honest. Like, this is not an easy way to do business. But some of the key things that we found is, you know, set yourself up in a position where you're free of most distractions. I've got the door closed, my family upstairs, my wife works from home. So I actually stole her office because I do a lot more calls, we found out. And it turns out I speak a lot louder. So it was bothering the rest of the family. So I got relegated to the basement and she took over the kitchen table is now her work from home office. But, you know, some key pieces are, you can see I've got the TV on over my shoulder. I usually turn that off, but I wanted it here to be illustrative of the way I work is I like to have that information available, but if it's a turn and it's over my shoulder, I can, you know, look over there, see what's going on with the world and come back in here. I can turn it off. I can also use it as a secondary monitor if I want to, you know, swap and be able to actually show people things in a way that's more collaborative and talking with them. So I can actually switch over to, you know, a direct shot like that, and I can point out things that are happening over here. It's, you know, it's not required that you have anything to that level, but I think that that's been very, very helpful. The other thing that I think is important is very, very cheap. I've got a small speaker here that I will rip off the table if I show it to you, but it's just a small speaker. It takes the headphones out of your ears and it makes it a more natural conversation. So for the past 3 days, we've had several big meetings, several one-on-one meetings. Even if you can't see the person, if you can kind of move around, you can see I talk with my hands a lot and kind of my New Englander aspect that I use. So, you know, this allows me to be a little bit more natural as I'm talking to people. So I think that brings me through kind of the 10 minutes of chatting that I wanted to do. I hope there's some questions out there.
Boy, do we have questions. Can I queue them up for you, Chubbs? I do. I got 3 for you, and I'll queue them up for you one at a time. So first of all, I think this is Lieutenant Colonel Devin Smiling. What work is being done to assess the timeliness of the capability and requirements transition process? He thinks it's a good segue for you.
All right. The timeliness of, read the last part.
Assess the timeliness of the capability and requirements transition process. This one's a big one. I'm only going to give you about 60 seconds because I want to make sure we can get to the other two.
Okay, so I think what we're really talking about is how do we go from when we identify that there is a requirement, a need out there, to actually putting that into the hands of soldiers and Marines, right? So there's the traditional path where you use the normal DoD POM cycle, and that really works on like a 24-month is kind of the fastest you can get something into the POM and have it actually go out and be funded. But there have been, again, we're not inventing anything. We're going out and identifying those groups that are doing things like ONR's Tech Solutions, which is, you know, a capability where they can, you know, you can submit ideas for things that you need to have prototyped or offered up, and in 12 months or less, they will have that out to the fleet. There are gap lists from all the different combatant commands all the way down to sort of the 06 level commands can put in gaps that they need to have filled. There's programs through, another one from ONR is Naval Innovation Process Adoption, or NIPA. That also goes to prototyping. But what we're trying to do at TechBridge is take all of these different methods that people have used and shown success with and make it a more standardized path and more transparent. So hopefully that will give us the ability to move faster. The real challenge, and I think to the question that he has there, is how do we then get it beyond the prototype phase, actually into the hands of warfighters, and then, you know, in the sustainment phase, right? Across the valley of death, if you will. So that has been a challenge. The successful programs that have done that largely mean that they've connected both the end user, the acquisitions folks, and the companies or, you know, solution providers all together as early as possible in the process. So that's what we're really trying to scale and make everyone do.
This actually leads really nicely. Again, thank you for the segue to the 2 other questions. I'm going to give you about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes for both of these at one time. First of all, the Marine Corps Warfighting Lab. Andy Roberts didn't spot it on the slides and just wants to know how it's slotted in here, and maybe DARPA too. So McWill, DARPA, and then also from, I believe, Major Ryan Keller out of McTissa. Is there a NavalX tech bridge at every FFRDC federally funded research development center?
All right, great questions. Let's see if I can, well, I can't bring it back up without taking up too much time. So I'll just say, yes, we are heavily involved with the Marine Corps. We are NavalX for a reason. We support both arms. We have worked with MCTISA and the Warfighting labs as well. The tech bridges, really what we identified were those organizations that were ready to give us a government rep right off the start. They had strong connections already into academia and then industry, particularly the non-traditional paths there, meaning not just the big defense contractors, not just the UARCs at universities that do giant engineering projects, but sort of, what Diana Teal from Orlando calls the garage people, the people just tinkering and working on this that eventually are going to scale this into major efforts. So I will say this about we do not have one at every lab and every warfare center yet. And honestly, some of them probably are not in the right locations or ecosystems to connect into it, but it is a network. They can all leverage each other, and it's a platform for people to go and use. So every warfare center does have a tech transfer office. Everyone has an SBIR office or a small business office. So they can all use that network to connect into the TechBridge ecosystem. And we do have the Garden down in Alexandria, Virginia, which is pretty close to Quantico, about 30 minutes, give or take, with traffic, where they can definitely leverage that as a place to go and work on these projects. Also, all of the warfare centers do have a mission to support not just Navy, but also Marine Corps missions. Particularly, our Midwest Tech Bridge in Crane, Indiana, does a lot of work for the Marine Corps, as does the Palmetto Tech Bridge, which is associated with NIWC LAMP. But all of them do a certain amount of Marine Corps work as well.
Beautiful. Anybody else have questions here for Chubbs? I see. Excellent. Good. Okay. So we're waiting for our next speakers here. So we have a couple extra minutes if you can stick around.
Absolutely.
Beautiful. So then let's take them in the order they came in. I think I see Dr. Delmore asking, how do we catalog the problems and curate them to release and understand potential solution spaces?
So I think that's a question on problem ingestion. Am I reading that right?
Ingestion, tracking, cataloging. I think, how do we make sure we don't lose the ball here?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Not surprising, Dale. Thank you for that. So it is incredibly difficult to actually manage the ingestion portion of this. So the first question that we had was really about, how does that cycle work? So we will take problems from, the strategic level, from the COCOM level, if they find a gaps list, OpNav N7 working on hard problems, Marine Corps, Commandant's office is working on hard problems, and they can feed those in through both the traditional paths that we talked about, but also offer it up to us. One example is with the project that's currently going through San Diego was one of these sort of orphaned programs, right? It didn't have a direct connection into a traditional, an OpNav N98 that works on aviation problems. So by being able to identify those problems that are best sourced to the outside non-traditionals, then we can take those in. The harder part really of what you talked about is the cataloging of those and how do we keep those. We are actively working on it, but unfortunately I don't have a firm solution that I can share with you right now.
Beautiful and good to know. A set of problems for all of us. Chubbs, thank you so much for spending time with us today. Feel free to stick around. We'd love to have you. I believe that
I'll be here all day. Thank you.
Tip your waitresses, right?